Is Salem, Oregon, or Silverton, Oregon a better place to live? When I relocated to Salem from Portland, Oregon, I actually wanted to move to Silverton instead. But in reality, Silverton was not going to be the right place for my husband and I. And chances are, it might not be the right place for you either. In this video, we're going to talk about the cost of living, flooding, vibes, and the overall differences between living in Salem, Oregon, and living in Silverton, Oregon. My husband and I ultimately relocated to Salem. So let's talk about the factors we considered before selecting Salem and some of the questions you might want to ask yourself before relocating to either place. By the end of this video, you're likely going to know which city you should avoid. If you are contemplating moving to either Salem, Oregon or Silverton, Oregon, this video is going to be the perfect introduction to the differences that you can expect between both towns. We can't compare the city of Salem and Silverton without actually talking about where the heck they are. So what we're looking at right now is a map, and as you can see, Salem is located right here. And Silverton is located just about 15 miles away from downtown Salem, or about 30 minutes away if there's no traffic. If we zoom out here a little bit, we can see on our map that both Silverton and Salem are located south of Portland, Oregon. Now, to get into Portland from Salem, it's going to take you about 45 minutes. But if you are going from Silverton to Portland, it's going to take you about 50 to 60 minutes. On the map here, we can see that as the crow flies, Silverton is actually closer to Portland than Salem. But because Silverton is a little bit more removed from that I-5 corridor, you do not have a straight shot into Portland, and you are going to have to meander your way onto the highway or on country roads before you can really have a direct shot from Silverton into Portland. And this is why the commute time from Silverton is longer, even though technically Silverton is closer to Portland than Salem is. Both Salem and Silverton act as a really great jumping off point to just being outdoors and venturing into state parks and just having different outdoor recreational options available to you. Now, something that both Silverton and Salem provide people is this concept of riverfront living. There is a small stream that flows through Silverton called Silver Creek, but it is not nearly as big as the Willamette River, which is where Salem is actually located right next to. Talking about water, and with water comes the fun potential of flooding. Did I say the F word? I did. Flooding. Salem and its surrounding areas do have flood zones, but it is very easy to avoid these flood zones. Silverton also has some sections of town that are in a flood zone, and they will require flood insurance if you fall into that particular area. So let's just pull up a map and look at where the heck these flood zone areas actually are. What we're looking at right now is the FEMA flood map for Silverton, Oregon. The areas on this map that are striped and then that lighter blue color, those are going to be flood zones where you do need to have flood insurance. And as you can see here, Silver Creek is that stripy part right here on the map. And just as a friendly reminder, Silver Creek is the small river that cuts through downtown Silverton. Kind of hard to see on this map here that there are houses along Silver Creek River, but there are. They're just hiding under the trees here, and those ones are going to be most prone to flooding. Remember, the striped areas and this light blue area, those are going to require flood insurance. Now let's quickly pull up the flood zone map for Salem. As you can see here, there is a section of Salem that does fall into that same type of flood zone. It's going to be stripy and it's going to be blue, and you are going to be required to have flood insurance. This is mainly close to the downtown Salem area. For both Salem and Silverton, it is pretty darn easy to avoid moving into one of these flood zones that does require flood insurance. If you're curious, I've linked the FEMA map in the description of this video so that you can play around with it by entering whatever address or town you want, and it's going to pull up all the flood information that you could ever imagine possibly wanting. If you are finding value in this video, be a cool cat and give it a thumbs up, and go down to the comments and tell me why you are considering moving to either Salem or Silverton, Oregon. Another note about floods and water is the point of access between Salem and Silverton. These points of access are mainly going to be Hazel Green Road and Silverton Road. Hazel Green Road, when it rains a lot, it does flood out and the road shuts down. Silverton Road is going to be your next best option from getting yourself into the city of Salem from Silverton. But if there's an accident, or you're driving along that country road and you get stuck behind a tractor, or somebody who's just a slow driver, then your commute into Salem might be a little bit longer, or you need to find an alternative country road to even get yourself into the city. Thankfully, there are a lot of country roads that are connecting, Silverton and Salem. The takeaway here, just be mindful that you are likely going to experience hiccups on your commute from Silverton to Lil Old Salem. Now you might be like, Clarity, why the heck are you talking about commuting between Silverton and Salem? Aren't we supposed to be comparing both towns? Great question, friends. I am talking about the commute between Silverton and Salem because a whole heck of a lot of people who work in Salem see Silverton as a really great bedroom community and alternative to actually living in the city of Salem itself. Because Silverton is more of a touristy town, there's not much job opportunity in the city of Silverton itself when we compare it to the city of Salem. So a lot of people who end up working in Salem, they purchase a home in cute Silverton and then just commute into town, into Salem every day. And that brings us on to the topic of demand. Demand to live in Silverton is very, very high because it's a really great place to live. But the supply of homes for sale has always been low in Silverton. Silverton does not have much expansion or new construction going on at the moment, and my guess is that this is very intentional. People like Silverton how it is, and from my understanding, there's not a lot of current discussions to expand or grow the city of Silverton. So my frosty friends, if your main focus is finding a small town with new construction, you're not going to find a whole heck of a lot of that in Silverton, but you are going to have better chances of finding that combination of new construction in a small town in a place like Dallas or Independence, which is on the west side of Salem. And alternatively, Salem does have a lot of new construction going on. And this is a huge difference between Salem and Silverton. Salem has new construction, Silverton, not so much. Salem is actively expanding new construction developments, and they are popping up all around the city if you know where to look, or if you're working with me, because I know where to look. Right now, we are seeing a lot of new construction up in Northeast Salem, which is actually pretty darn close to Silverton, and South Salem. And I really don't see that changing anytime soon. The city of Salem, I think, is starting to recognize that Salem is much more affordable than Portland, and a lot of people don't want to live in Portland anymore. Salem is proving it is a great alternative for just anyone who wants to move to the Pacific Northwest but want a smaller town vibe, which is why Salem keeps on pumping out new construction homes. The demand, it's there. Talk about the size of each location. Salem has just under 200,000 residents and Silverton has around 10,000. Guys, that is a huge difference. The way that I like to describe Salem is that it's a big, small town. It's a town, it's a small city, but you have access to different amenities, restaurants, stores, and really anything that you could possibly want, you can find in the city of Salem. Except rewind, the shopping here, like the department store shopping and the really nice shopping, you got to go to Portland for that. In Silverton, you do not have as much retail shopping and you don't have as many grocery store options, so you are still likely going to be dependent to go into Salem for certain stores that you might want to go shop at. Because Salem and Silverton are pretty darn close to each other, the people of Silverton commonly find themselves in Salem doing things like grocery shopping at Costco or Trader Joe's, or going to Kaiser Station, which has Target and In-N-Out. Sounds like a fun afternoon to me, but just a simple lady with simple tastes. So if you are considering moving to Silverton, just know that it is a small town and you are still going to be dependent on going into Salem to get a lot of your day-to-day needs met. On the flip side of all of this, if you are looking for a small town feel and you want a really tight-knit community, you like the idea of the downtown area just being a few blocks wide, then Silverton might be a really great fit for you. In Silverton, you have the ability to live very close to the historic downtown center, which is a huge highlight for a lot of people who move into that area. Because you can easily walk to downtown and you can easily dip into the Saturday market or whatever community event is going on. Alternatively, in Salem, you really don't have as many options for that downtown style of living. There are a few handful of neighborhoods that are surrounding downtown Salem, but for the most part, it's going to be kind of challenging to find residential living that allows you to walk into downtown Salem in the same kind of way that you can in Silverton. So the takeaway here is if you want to live in Salem, you can expect that it's going to be a little bit more of a hustle and bustle feel, but with that comes a lot more, access to grocery stores and restaurants and, all of those other things that come with a bigger population. If you want to live in a small town with a tight-knit community like this, then Silverton is the way to go. I would absolutely love for you to take a moment to go down to the comment section and tell me which town you think is better, Salem or Silverton, Oregon. Let's compare the overall cost of living between Salem and Silverton. This is a huge factor that makes living in Silverton prohibitive to many buyers. For this topic, we're going to be focusing on the cost of real estate because when we compare the cost of food and groceries and going out to restaurants and just, living daily life, Salem and Silverton pretty much have the same cost of living. The biggest difference is going to come down to the cost of real estate. Generally speaking, while Salem does have some more expensive and luxury neighborhoods, you are going to find that the average home in Salem is going to be a little bit more affordable than it would be in Silverton. This is a huge surprise to most of my YouTube clients who are debating whether they want to live in Salem or Silverton. Most of my clients end up thinking that because Silverton is a smaller tourist town and there's not as many amenities, that it would be more affordable to purchase real estate in Silverton. But it's completely the opposite. Your budget is going to go a lot further in Salem or Kaiser than it ever will in Silverton. Some of the primary reasons why Silverton has a higher cost of real estate when we compare it to Salem is because the town has just a really great quality of life. A lot of people want to move there. In addition, they have great schools, great community events, really great parks throughout the city, and just generally speaking, the quality of life, it's slightly higher in Silverton than it is in Salem. Silverton also has a very limited supply in regards to the amount of homes that are for sale at any one time. Remember, this is a town of just around 10,000 residents. When we have a real estate market with limited inventory and homes for sale, it allows the homes that are for sale to have a very high value because there's short supply. Real estate is all about supply and demand, and Silverton has done a very good job of keeping those property values high while keeping the supply low. At the time that this video was recorded, the median home sales price in Silverton was just shy of $540,000, whereas the median home sales price for Salem was at $425,000. So we saw on the map that Silverton and Salem are very close together, but funny enough, they do tend to have slightly different weather patterns. And this is predominantly because, based on where you live in Silverton, you could be at a higher elevation. And if you are at a higher elevation, you should expect that you're going to have more snow and ice than people living in downtown Silverton or Salem. Now, don't get me wrong, Salem does get snow and ice storms ever so often, but I would say that Silverton is much more prone to having a little bit chillier of weather patterns overall. Otherwise, both Salem and Silverton are going to have very similar seasonal patterns. In the wintertime, you should be expecting that it's going to be a little bit gray and rainy and chilly. And in the summertime, it's going to be hot, but not scorching. And for the days that we do have scorching summer heat, don't worry, because both Silverton and Salem have great access to outdoor amenities where you can cool off, like go jump in the Silver Falls Reservoir and go for a swim. And I would say I grew up with the understanding that you do not swim in the Willamette River. And this is because in Portland, they're used to have when it would rain and, the sewers would overflow and stuff. Well, that sewage would go right into the river. I don't know the status anymore, but that was enough information for me to be like, Willamette River? No, I'm not going to go swim in you. So as somebody who's thinking about relocating to this area, I don't know if you should really be swimming in the Willamette River, but definitely check out Silver Falls Reservoir, which is a better, cleaner alternative if you want to go swimming on hot days. The best recreational highlights of Silverton beyond the reservoir is Silver Falls State Park, which is just up the hill, up the mountain to the east of the city of Silverton. And it is gorgeous. If you have yet to check out that state park, it's definitely worth the trip. And because Silverton is right at the base of that state park, you can just drive through Silverton and check it out on your way home or back to Salem, back to Portland, wherever you're going or coming from. If you like the idea of living close to Silver Falls State Park out in the country in a little bit more rural of a setting, there are houses that are above the city of Silverton. And it is a gorgeous part of Oregon that I don't really think a lot of people realize. You can buy a house out there. There is a lot of countryside, but there are a lot of homes as well. My personal favorite recreational activity in Salem is either Willamette Mission State Park or putzing around the downtown waterfront park. I think that both Silverton and Salem are great for anyone who loves being outside and loves the idea of living in an area of Oregon that's close to things like the Portland International Airport, getting bougie in Portland, and all of the other fun cities like Eugene and Corvallis and anywhere along the Oregon coast. Both Salem and Silverton offer a lot of different amenities and housing options. It really just comes down to, what your budget is, and do you want to live in a little big city like Salem, or do you want to live in a small town like Silverton? My husband and I decided that Salem was going to be more conducive to our lifestyle, but at the beginning of this transition in our life, when we were deciding to relocate away from Portland, we absolutely considered moving to Silverton. But ultimately, we like the hum of more of a bigger city life, and that's what really drew us to Salem over Silverton. But I do know, if my husband and I had moved into Silverton, we would have absolutely picked out a character home because Silverton is as old as dirt, not really, but kind of, and it has some amazing century homes, and there are just oodles and oodles of homes with amazing character. And I'm really curious to know, do you feel like Salem or Silverton would be a better fit for you and your family? Go down to the comments and tell me which town you feel like you prefer. If you enjoyed this video, you, my friends, are going to want to watch this one next. Bye!